the game.
Hi, I'm Kelsa Dickey, the CEO of the Financial Coach Academy and my financial coaching business, Fiscal Fitness Phoenix. My coaching journey began more than a decade ago with me helping people for free from my dining room table. What was once a little business of mine has grown into a 7-figure company that employs a team of people. My goal is simple, to help you fall more and more in love with financial coaching. I believe financial coaching is the most rewarding way to make a living. If you are an aspiring financial coach or have been coaching for years, I'm here to help you create a business you love that gets your clients massive results. Let's get to it. Hey, financial coach. Welcome to episode 32 of the podcast. We're going to be talking about how to overcome imposter syndrome. But first, just a couple of things. A review that was left on Apple Podcasts by, Equatan, E-C-U-A-T-A-N. I am so sorry if I butchered that. This person says, I've learned something new every episode. I appreciate Kelsa's dedication to the financial coaching profession. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. All right, let's see. I do want to say so much thank you for the reviews. I can't tell you how much I appreciate them. If you have Apple Podcasts, I would love to ask you to drop a rating or review. I have an iPhone. I don't actually use Apple Podcasts all that much, actually. I think Stitcher is a way better app, or I'm sure you might have a favorite. But if you could hop on over to Apple Podcasts, if you have that on your phone. I currently have 41 reviews of this podcast, and I would love to get to 50. It does help people find the podcast, I think explore this as a profession. I'm not shy about my mission, which is to advance the profession of financial coaching. And really, I would love to see way more financial coaches. I do believe that there is a great need for financial coaches. I personally feel that I think we're going to see some more people feeling a financial squeeze here. I'm normally not like a doomsday prepper by any means, or I don't normally panic, or I don't typically have like a very pessimistic view of the economy or those types of things. And yet I do foresee at the time of this recording, I do foresee that things are going to get harder for folks. Expenses are just going up, and things like gas and food, medical bills, housing, cost of meat, cost of energy, power, water, all sorts of things are increasing while wages are staying stagnant. And I think the good news is that financial coaches are needed in good times and in bad. And we do have job stability in that way. And we're in a position to help no matter what. So when incomes are going up and commissions are coming in and people are making more money, they want to do really good things with that, and they have an opportunity to sort of seize that moment, and we are there to help them be intentional and strategic with their money. And when things are hard and when things are tight, and unfortunately there's a bunch of people who they feel motivated to make changes when things get bad. And so there could be a lot of people who are needing help right now. And I think financial coaches are in a perfect position to help them. And I think it's going to be really needed. I would love to have more financial coaches in our world helping people of, all different types. And I think it sounds like such a simple thing, but leaving a rating, leaving a review really does help. And I just want to say thank you. I appreciate it for those who have left them already, the 41 of you who have done it. Thank you so much. And if I could get to 50, that would make me a happy, happy camper. So thank you so much. All right, let's talk about imposter syndrome. Oh my gosh. Okay, first, let's talk about what it is in general. Okay, and then we're going to talk about it from a coaching perspective and help you to hopefully overcome some imposter syndrome if you're experiencing it. Imposter syndrome is a pattern of doubting your own skills, talents, or abilities. It's sort of the opposite of confidence is one way to think about it. Another definition that I found is that it's the feeling of anxiousness, worry, or doubt that can plague us when we're attempting something new or doing something we don't feel confident in. And if you were to think about what imposter means, like what does it mean to be an imposter? It's someone who intentionally deceives others, or a person who pretends to be someone else in order to deceive others, especially for financial gain, right? Anytime you are striving for something new, chances are you do the thing before you feel like the person who does the thing, right? So your identity can sort of lag behind sometimes. And when that happens, there can be this feeling of being an imposter, right? That can be where it comes from sometimes. Not always. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but sometimes, okay? It's one of the reasons why, if you were to go back to episodes 14 and 15, when I talk about the stages of coaching, and we talked about those beginning phases, and I said, start calling yourself a financial coach right away and every day when you first start. Every day, say to someone, find someone to tell, I am a financial coach. Say that to them. And that is because we want to start shifting your identity towards that before you even start taking action, right? So you want to have that buy-in, that you want to start embodying it as quickly as possible. You can believe that you are a financial coach just because today you decided you're going to start financial coaching. You could absolutely say that, but oftentimes people will have a misalignment about that, right? And that, I think, is where imposter syndrome can sort of creep in. I think there are two perspectives on imposter syndrome that I want to talk about today. I think that one may resonate with you more than the other, and I think that that's pretty common, but I want to offer up both of them because one of them may resonate with one of you and the other, another coach, and that kind of thing. We've coached our clients on starting side hustles, launching businesses, doing big things with their money, things that feel really scary to them, even buying an investment property and those types of things. We have had clients cross the $1 million net worth mark, and we say to them, you're a millionaire now. You realize that that's what that means, right? And they sort of oh my God, they can't even believe it, right? And it is a form of imposter syndrome as well. And when we coach clients through this, I do see these two perspectives sort of come up sometimes, and I can understand both of them, which is why I wanted to share them both in today's episode. So the first one is that imposter syndrome is not a thought, okay? I am an imposter, or would be a thought, right? I am an imposter. That's me thinking that, right? Or if you were to think to yourself or feel I feel like a fake, in this example, in this perspective, what we actually see is that imposter syndrome, it's not a thought and it's not a feeling. So if you go back to episode 18, where we talked about the model, okay, the coaching model, we're going to use that a lot today. So I want to make sure that we are all on the same page. There's your circumstances, what you think of those circumstances. Those thoughts create feelings. How you feel determines the actions you take or don't take. Those actions determine your results. That is the model. Circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, and results, right? In this perspective, imposter syndrome is not a thought or a feeling. It would actually go in the circumstance line. Okay, so let's talk through this a little bit. Here are some circumstances that could mean you feel like an imposter, or you create the situation where you are an imposter. Okay, here they are. You don't have enough training. You don't have specific experience yet. Maybe you don't have any clients yet. Maybe the thought is or the circumstance is you don't know something important. Okay, so there's a part of coaching that you don't know. Maybe you feel as if the circumstances are that you currently have debt. And so you feel like that stops you from coaching others on getting out of debt, right? Maybe it's that you are still on your financial journey. Maybe that's the circumstance. Maybe the circumstance is that you don't have a website, you don't have business cards. In other words, there's sort of no professional look. There's nothing to show or demonstrate that you're a financial coach. There could also be the circumstance that my spouse doesn't support me, or I'm not receiving support from my family, or people don't believe that I can do this, right? That could also be a circumstance, okay? Now, the most important thing is that any number of things, these things could be true for you. Maybe you haven't done any training on coaching yet. Maybe you haven't had any clients yet. That could absolutely be true, right? But it's actually what you think of that matters. The circumstance is that you don't have clients, you don't have the training yet, but what you are making that to mean is what is most important. Being an imposter can be a circumstance, in other words, right? So you can be like, I don't have the qualifications, or I don't have the training, or I don't have the skill yet, those types of things, right? There's a piece of knowledge I don't have. That can be true, and a person say, yeah, I'm going to go do it anyway. You know what I mean? And then another person can say, and because of that, I can't become a coach. I'm not a coach yet, right? In other words, it is what you are making of the circumstance that matters most, okay? But the circumstance is sort of what determines if you are an imposter or not, okay? Or I guess the word that I would like to use instead of imposter is that you're new, okay? Like, I don't have any training yet, I'm new, right? It doesn't mean that you're an imposter. It just means that you're new. You are the one that is making that to mean that you are an imposter because of that, okay? There was a conversation on after episode 24. We posted that in the Financial Coaches Unite group like we always do every single week, and then we asked people to have a conversation about the episode and that kind of thing. And Jackson commented, that was the episode where we talked about you don't need to have a certification to call yourself a coach, right? And he had commented, and he said, I'll just read the comment to you. The first hard inquiry I received from a prior work acquaintance asked if I had taken any courses or had any prior work experience. And then he kind of does like one of these emojis. I guess there will, and for those of you listening on a podcast, it's like the shake my head emoji because you didn't see what I just did. I guess there will always be those that feel more comfortable with acronyms behind a name, regardless of how qualified the individual is. So, in other words, a person asked if you had taken any courses or had any prior work experience. And Jackson sort of took that to mean like he wants me to have a qualification, or he's asking about my credentials, or he's asking about letters after my name and that kind of thing. And I think this is a perfect example of sort of like what we think of it as how we interpret it, right? Because I read this person's question and I think it could mean any number of things. And that's, I think, because of what I think of it. So I think this question could have been perceived or could have meant something along the lines of, hey, is this something you've been doing for a while? Or is this something you've been interested in for a while? That is how that question could have been interpreted, and not sort of like he's asking me about the specific credentials that I have. See what I mean? Now, I don't know for sure. There was a conversation about it, but I don't want to put any words in Jackson's mouth by any means. But I do think that something that happens sometimes for coaches when they're first starting out is you feel insecure about something. You feel nervous about something. And so when somebody asks a question, you internalize it as if it's about that exact thing you are most worried about, right? And if you could shift your thoughts, you would likely interpret the question differently. So instead of this person, like if I'm going to go to somebody and be like, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, I think it's very reasonable for a person to be like, oh, and do you have any experience with that? Or like, I think the tone behind it could almost be like, tell me how you got to that point, or tell me what led up to this, right? But people don't know always how to ask those questions, I think. It can come out a certain way. And if it sort of like noodles at our own worries and our own insecurities, the doubts that we already have, that's when we want to be careful. So in this case, this person could have said, is this something you've been doing for a while, or is this something you've been interested in for a while? Here's what a response could have been to this person's question, regardless of how they asked it, right? This has been an interest of mine for years, and I'm really excited to be doing it in a more professional capacity now. So it doesn't matter if they ask about, any courses or any prior work experience. You could say, this has been an interest of mine for years, and I'm really excited to be doing it in a more professional way. And I'm excited to explore those types of things for this new journey of mine, right? And it's kind of this idea that being an imposter can simply be just a circumstance that you are experiencing that is temporary, and because you are new, and it's not something to apologize for. It's not something to defend. It is simply your interpretation of that is making you feel as if you have to do that. Okay. It is just a circumstance. A really great book for this is, if you haven't read it yet, is The Question Behind the Question. And I did not write down the author. I should have done that in my notes, but I didn't. So The Question Behind the Question, you can Google it. It's a very short read, very easy read. But the idea here is like the same with when a person is asking about your credentials. The literal question is, what are your credentials, or what's your certification, or did you take a certification? That's the literal question. I think most people's question, the question behind the question is, can I trust you, right? How can I trust you? And that's just one way that a person is looking to trust you, but you can actually create that trust in a lot of different ways, like we talked about in a previous episode. The main point I'm trying to make with this perspective is this. You may not have enough training. You may not yet have any specific experience or any clients just yet. That may be true. And are you the one that is making that to mean that you can't help people because of that? Are you taking that circumstance and applying it with the kind of thought that you are having to it? Okay, so what kind of thought are you applying to it, I guess is really the question. If we were to take any of those statements that I listed earlier, so things like, I don't have enough training, I don't have any specific experience yet, I don't have any clients yet, right? And those could just be circumstances, right? If we were to take any of those and make them the circumstances, realize that it is what you think of that matters more than anything. Are you letting that stop yourself from helping somebody? There are hundreds, probably thousands of people who don't have formal training around coaching, and they think training doesn't matter. I'm going to help people no matter what. So you can think that and have no training. You could also not have any training and think, and therefore I'm an imposter and can't help anybody, right? But it's just the circumstance behind that, and it's what you think of it that matters most, okay? The area to focus on, if this sounds like you, is what you are making that thing to mean. Are you judging it? In other words, if you don't have any clients yet, are you judging that as therefore you are not a real coach? Okay. What do you have to do to not judge it? What could that thought be instead? What's a neutral stance you could take on it, right? So you could say, I'm looking for my first few clients, right? And I'm excited to coach them, right? Instead of thinking, I am an imposter, if this sounds like you, if this perspective sounds like you, then simply accept I'm new, right? I'm not an imposter. I'm just new. I'm new at this. It's okay to be new at something, right? Everybody has to start someplace. Okay, so that's the first perspective, where it's simply a circumstance, but it's what you're making it to mean that matters most. Now, the second perspective is that imposter syndrome is actually a thought, okay? And I do understand this angle too, and I know this sounds like a very nuanced thing, but I do want to talk about it. Where I see this happening is where none of those other circumstances are real and a person still feels like an imposter. So for example, you've got 10 clients now, you have done training, you have done a number of things, and yet you are still having the thought, I'm an imposter. So the circumstances sort of become irrelevant, right? And there are times where it's like, again, with that first perspective, you could kind of look at it in the circumstances, like the facts behind it are, like you don't have any clients yet. It's like we're just judging that though. Like it's not that big of a deal, I guess is what I'm saying, right? But we can sometimes make it feel like a really big deal. But in this case, none of those circumstances are there. None of those facts are playing out. And yet you're still telling yourself that you're an imposter. We see this one happen all the time too. And this is why it's so important to work on this and to be aware of it and present to it and coach yourself on it, because in this case, I'm going to read this quote from the Harvard Business Journal. They reported that imposter syndrome can be defined as a collection of feelings of inadequacy, can be defined as a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist despite evident success. Okay? You can experience imposter syndrome despite performing in high achieving ways or accomplishing some form of external success. In this case, it would look like the person who has plenty of clients, they have experience, they've read the books or they've taken courses in order to become a coach and a skilled coach at that, and yet they still have the thought, I am an imposter, okay? Or I'm no good at this, like no one should be taking me serious, or whatever those thoughts are, right? And again, do some journaling on like what is the thought that you are having if this sounds like the perspective you're taking with it. In this case, it is 100% a thought that you're having. And applying the model will still work well in this case as well. So coach your thought on the thoughts that you are having. So instead of saying things like, I am an imposter or whatever that thought is, and I will say, I don't think most people like say I'm an imposter. Like it's not internalized in that way. So you really want to think about like, what is the thought that you're having? I need more blank. I still have to go do this. I need to go learn this. I need to acquire this skill yet before I can officially adopt the identity of I am a financial coach, right? That's what we're talking about here. So here's some thoughts to consider. I don't know everything, but I know enough to help someone today. Or I will never know everything there is to know, but I can take action based on what I do know today. One of the things I tell my kids all the time is you will live your whole life and never learn all there is to learn in this world. Isn't that cool? Isn't that amazing? I love that. I think that is so cool. And so it's sort of this idea of like, you don't know everything. I don't know everything. And I've been doing this a long time. Nobody knows everything about coaching. And you will never, ever, ever, I don't care if you are a master coach, you will still not know everything there is to know about this profession, right? So it's like, and I can take action today based on what I already know. And then I'm going to learn more and I'm going to take different action because of that, right? Another thought that you can sort of shift this to is growing and learning can happen at the same time as helping others. So growing and learning can happen at the same time as helping others, or growing and learning can happen at the same time as taking action, right? That I don't have to do one and then the other. That oftentimes these are they're working in synergy with each other, right? Like they're happening at the exact same time. It's not one step A and then step B. It's like we're doing A and B together, okay? Another reframe that you can coach yourself through is I am an expert to someone. I am an expert to those I serve. I think there's this idea that like if someone knows more than you consider them an expert. And because they're an expert, you don't see yourself as an expert, but you're forgetting that you're sort of seeing it through your lens and not through your client's lens or your prospective client's lens. Chances are your prospective client also sees you as an expert. And yes, they may look at your mentor or the person you look up to and also see them as an expert, but that doesn't diminish the fact that you are also an expert to them, right? So just something to think about there, like I am an expert to someone. I am an expert to those I serve, okay? So the first thing that I think we should do in this perspective is to name it. You want to identify your imposter syndrome for like what it is, call it out, really identify what are the thoughts that you are having about it, which I do think removes some of the power, initially. I always think about it as like a monster behind your closet door. So if you're laying in bed and it's dark and you sort of like can really, you're looking at your closet door and it's, cracked open, it's dark and you sit there and you stare at it. And in your mind, it starts to get bigger and bigger and scarier. And you start to like, oh my God, what is going to pop out behind this door, right? And this is typically something you do when you're a kid, right? But finally you walk over and you're like, I'm just going to open the closet door, and then your cat jumps out. And you're like, oh, it was just a cat, right? You also see this in like horror movies. And it's like naming our imposter syndrome is like realizing that it was just a cat in the closet and it's not a monster. Okay, so you really want to consider that as like, let me just name this. Let me figure out exactly what the thought is. That is the first step always. Okay, so identifying what is the thought that I'm having and then try to reframe it. Okay, so how can I shift this instead? What's another thought I can replace this with? And so every time I have sort of this thought, I'm going to like do a daily affirmation, or I'm going to remind myself that it's not this, it's actually this. Okay. Another thing is to understand that it's do, learn, and not just learn, do. So confidence often comes from knowing that you can do something. And the only way that you can know if you can do something is to just go and do it. Now, you may believe in your ability to do it. You may have faith in yourself. You may not doubt yourself, but That's not the same thing as knowing with absolute certainty that I can do something, and you don't have that until you do something, right? So you just got to go and do it. That is one of the best things you can do. I also think, again, it's sort of like it's not step A and then step B. It's not learn and then do. It is, we're going to do them together, right? Like you are learning while you are also doing, okay? And that is one of the best ways to overcome imposter syndrome because, again, the reverse of imposter syndrome is confidence. And so it's one of the best ways to gain confidence because not only can I do it, but even if I didn't do it, I survived it, I'm fine, and I'm going to learn something so that I can do it the next time, right? So the confidence comes from doing oftentimes. And so that's the next thing is to do it anyway. There are some things that you may not be able to coach yourself through. That's why we need coaches in the world. If every human could coach themselves through every situation in life, then coaches would not be needed at all. Working through your imposter syndrome may feel possible for some of you and may feel impossible for others. Or it might feel like some weeks it's totally doable and other weeks you're like, oh my God, it's just like your self-doubt is really high that week, right? I do think this is one of the biggest benefits of doing cohorts in the academy. It is a digital course, like we always say, but it's one of those things where you're actually doing it alongside a group of people who are right there with you, right? So you're supporting each other, you're overcoming those limiting beliefs together. You can coach each other through those things. You can actually practice coaching because you're surrounding yourself with other coaches. Coaches should have coaches, okay? I absolutely believe that. You don't need to pay a coach. You can. I think that's great too. I always have a coach, but it can be sort of working one-on-one with a coach where you're supporting them and they're supporting you. Now, if you do that, I do want to just put a little caveat on that. It's really important to establish the coaching container. What I mean by that is if you are two coaches and you're brainstorming together or you're sort of holding each other to a coaching relationship, there should probably be times where one of you is the coach and the other is the client. And then there's times when you reverse those roles, but you kind of don't want to muddy those waters at the same time. Okay, I just think that's really important. So just something to think about. That is why it's okay if you can't process through this on your own. It's okay if you can't process through anything on your own and you need a coach to help you with that. I think that is the power of coaching, right? If we want to be coaches, we should believe in the power of coaching, which means being willing to ask for help and be coached on something when we need it, okay? And I do think imposter syndrome is one of those things where, yes, it is very prevalent. It happens to a lot of people. I still experience imposter syndrome today, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. But the idea is being willing to work through it. Okay. And thinking about either one of these perspectives. Is it a true circumstance that you're facing? And sort of just leaning into that and being like, yeah, I'm new. Yep. I don't have any clients yet, but not judging it. That's one element. And then the other one is it not the circumstances? You have no reason to sort of feel like an imposter, but you still have that mindset anyway. And how can you coach yourself through that, right? How can you work through that on your own or with somebody to help you? Okay. Like I was saying, I still experience imposter syndrome till this day. And I think that's usually because I'm always striving for the next thing. Whether that's in my life or my business, I sort of always have a goal or I always have some new thing that I'm trying or a new skill and it can be something in the gym, powerlifting, right? I'm going to go for something big and I'm having this, mindset or this imposter feeling of I'm not a power lifter, right? Or I'm not that, what am I thinking sort of thing? This is just a hobby of mine. What am I doing? Kind of thing. I have those thoughts and I simply acknowledge it. And here's a trick that I do, and you can steal this if you want. When I feel imposter syndrome, it's something that I work through pretty quickly now because I've had, years of coaching myself through it, but is I imagine that it's a little puppy. So when I say name your imposter syndrome, you can name it so you can really identify it. I turned mine into a little puppy. And I simply imagine that I'm just carrying it right underneath my arm. And I'm like, okay, come on, let's go. We're doing it anyway, kind of thing. Yep, I'm nervous as hell. I feel like imposter. I have no idea if I'm going to make this work or not. I might completely fail. And you know what? Here we go, little puppy, come with me kind of thing. And that is literally what I've done. It's just there with me. It does not mean anything. I can feel like an imposter and still do the thing, whatever that is in life or business, right? So I actually look at it and I think and this is sort of the next stage that sort of worked for me, was I've started to realize that every time I have my little puppy under my arm, my imposter puppy, I sound like a crazy person, I think. I realize that it's when I do that, I'm in a phase of growth and learning, and I am doing something new probably. And now it's almost like a badge of honor in a way, or like a sign of strength. And I look at it and I'm like, here we go. Like, I am doing it. And now I just do it and it's so much more effortless, right? Like, I can just do it with more ease. But it has taken me years to really develop that muscle and to really grow strength in that way of being like, yep, this might feel real uncomfortable here. Let's go. Come on. Kind of, you know what I mean? So just if that works for you, use it. If you think I'm crazy, that's cool too. So that is imposter syndrome, a couple different perspectives. I would love to hear from you. Coaching is all about figuring out what you think of something and how that is impacting how you feel and the actions you take. In order to honor the coaching philosophy, I like to end every episode with a question for you to reflect on. The purpose is to deepen your awareness and help you gain clarity on the episode topic. It also creates the opportunity for you to share with me your thoughts and with other financial coaches. So let's get the discussion going. I would love to hear from you. If you are watching this episode on YouTube, drop me a comment with your answer to today's question. If you are listening on a podcast player, you can also join the conversation in our free community on Facebook called Financial Coaches Unite. Hop on over, ask to join Financial Coaches Unite, and leave your answer to this question in the group. Here it is. If you experience imposter syndrome, what is the circumstance behind that? What thought are you having about that circumstance, and how can you shift that thought? Now, this is important because your circumstance may be that there's an actual reason that you think that you're an imposter, right? Like, I don't have clients, that kind of thing. Or your circumstance might be you actually can't think of a reason that you feel like an imposter, right? So that it's like more of just a thought that you're having. So that's why I want you to, it's kind of a 3-part question. Okay. If you experience imposter syndrome, what is the experience behind that? What thoughts are you having about that circumstance? And how can you shift that thought? All right. I cannot wait to hear your answers on this one. I cannot wait. Okay. All right. Next episode, you guys, I am super excited about this. This is my last recording for a couple of months because I'm going to go spend the summer in Michigan with my family, and I cannot wait. But that means that the brilliant Jill Emanuel is going to bring you the next few episodes so that I can go away for a little while. And I have to tell you guys just really quickly, a little side note. I was telling somebody, I was at a conference and I was telling them that I'm going to take a short sabbatical from the business. And I'd asked this person, he's, owns multiple businesses, multi-million-dollar businesses and that kind of thing. And so I'd asked him, I had said, any advice for me or any tips or strategies and that kind of thing. And he said, no, I don't. I've never done that before. And if you don't want to be the CEO of your business, you should just hire somebody else to be the CEO of your business. And it kind of blew my mind. I don't think I said anything back because I was sort of stunned because in my mind, I had never considered that the reason I was doing this was because I didn't want to be involved in my business. Like that, it honestly never crossed my mind. And so I was a little taken aback by it. To me, the reason I'm doing this, there's a number of reasons. And I just want to share them really quickly. One, I can't wait to spend some time with my family. I think it's going to be amazing. I've got 2 young kids. It feels like it's just flying by. My business was my first baby, and I gave a lot to it, and I am so proud of that. I don't begrudge any of it. I would do it again in a heartbeat. And we have this opportunity and to spend time together. We have had a massive year of growth in the business, a good 1.5 years of just really great growth, and I'm really proud of that. And as a result, I really had to throw myself into the weeds of some projects and some implementation and execution. And there was just a lot going on, all positive things. And I sort of decided, I got to the point where I said, we're not doing anything new for a little while. We're just not. There's no new projects. There's no new endeavors. There's none of that. We're good. We don't need that, right? We are so good. And I'm going to just allow myself to just chill in the business, right? We're going to go into a little bit of an autopilot sort of couple of months here. And I am so excited about that. And I think it's important because we got into the rhythm in the business where we were tackling the next thing and then the next thing and the next thing. And I sort of saw this pattern unfolding where we all are very passionate on my team about the work that we do. We are all very hard workers. And we all need to play sometimes. We all need to just let loose a little bit. And I realized that as the leader of my organization, I need to lead by example. I need to set that tone. And I don't want us to fall into a pattern that we then can't get out of because it becomes our MO, right? Like, I love the fact that we were able to do that we all stepped up. We did amazing. Like, I'm so proud of us. And I want us to do that when it's necessary, not sort of operate in that mode all of the time. And so this is my way to like sort of shift the energy a little bit. I am so excited about that. I believe all of the people on my team deserve that. And then another reason is because I realized something, you guys, and this is a thought, right? So I'm gonna show you the model really quickly in my brain. I had this realization that a feeling I have not had in my business in a long time is the feeling of missing it. I've been a coach and an entrepreneur for 15 years now, and I absolutely love it. I don't plan to step away anytime soon. And yet I haven't missed my business. I haven't coveted it. I have not desired it in a long time because I didn't have it. Like, I've always had it. It's been stable. It's been solid. It's always been there. And I had this thought of, I want to create an opportunity where I miss my business. I want to feel that feeling, right? And so I essentially reverse engineered and was like, in order to create that feeling, here's what I can do, and here's the thought I want to have, and here's the circumstances I can create, and that kind of thing. And I'm actually really excited. I fully imagine that I am going to be gone for a little while, and I am going to miss my business so much. And I can't wait to feel that way. I can't wait to miss what I do every day. And I think it's going to create a really cool opportunity to feel differently. I see it as a little bit of a challenge. The third reason is I want to see that what I've built is bigger than me. And I sort of am seeing it as a little bit of a challenge. Like, I fully believe it's going to be amazing. I'm so excited about it. I'm excited to see how the team thrives and all of that. And I want to prove that what I've built is going to last even longer than me and that kind of thing. And I'm going to sort of prove that to myself in one really small way. And I'm super excited about it. I cannot wait. So, sorry for that little tangent, but Jill, in case you guys didn't know, was a client of mine before I ever hired her to join my team as a financial coach. And when she hired me as her financial coach initially, she and her husband had no money, none. Yet they committed to coaching even though they had no idea how they were going to pay for it. And I want you to hear from Jill how that decision was made at that time, how she was feeling, what her thought process was, because I know so many of you think that you can't offer coaching to someone if you're looking at their budget and you can't see how they can afford your fee. I know that stops you from offering help to them when you can absolutely help them, and I know you can. So I think it's going to be super inspiring. I think it's going to be insightful for you to hear from someone like Jill, who has been on both sides of that conversation, from the client perspective and now on the coaching side of things, where she, is on the other side of that table making that offer. And I cannot wait for her to tell that. She's also going to cover a few other episodes, but that's going to be the episode for next week, is where she actually talks about that decision she made. Yes, it was scary, but she's going to also talk about why she did it, even though she had no idea how she was going to pay for it. And I think it's going to be an awesome episode. I can't wait for you to hear it. All right. I believe financial coaching is the best and most rewarding way to make a living. I truly love what I do. If you're ready to learn and see how to become a profitable, successful financial coach, check us out at financialcoachacademy.com, where you can learn more about our online courses, free trainings, and our events. As always, I love to hear from you as well. If you have any questions for the podcast, any feedback, any thoughts, we'd love to hear them. Submit them at financialcoachacademy.com/podcast. And if you love this podcast, please, please, please leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. I would really appreciate it, and it would mean the world to me. I will see you next week, Coach.